Today's video, you'll definitely want to stay tuned where we're going to go into how to identify a motivated seller and turn them into closed deals. All right, you know the next steps. Those of you on the YouTube, hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell. That way you can be informed moving forward. Name is Sterling White if I haven't already said it, and you can get more background on myself on episode 308, which is definitely a highly recommended podcast. Of course, I'm a little bit biased saying that it's highly recommended, but you'll definitely want to check that out just to get some more background on myself. But started in construction 2009 and then ended up shifting to single family home investing, where I ended up scaling closer to about 150, and then transitioned to multifamily in 2017. We're able to scale portfolio to close to about 500 units. So that's a compacted version or story up on myself. If you haven't, check out episode 308 if you want some more context on that. But we're going to go ahead and jump into the reason why this is important in identifying motivated sellers and leads. This allows you to really devote your focus and efforts. And I like to use the 80-20 principle on this, is to focus your 80% of efforts on the 20% of actual people who have a need and want to sell their property, versus spinning your wheels on people who don't necessarily want to sell their property, or they will sell it for top dollar, which is not likely that will make sense for you. So that's the reason why you really want to identify and see if someone has pain points and a problem to solve. That way you're able to go in there and solve their problem. That way it is a win-win situation for both you and that person on the other end. So the first point that I want to make is the actual strategies with being able to identify. But first, you've got to get in contact with them. And it all comes down to, I'm a huge proponent on the follow-up, but there's so many different ways that you can use, because there's some owners I've been following up with. It's going on 3 years now. Yes, 3 years. So sometimes when you first do the outreach to someone and I'm referring more so on the off market side, they may not be ready to sell then and there, but this is where you then follow up and constantly look to stay top of mind, instead of just following up and saying, now you're interested in selling your property, now you're interested in selling your property, now you're interested in selling your property. That person won't want to speak to you again if you're constantly following up that way. Be creative in your messaging. Many of you know, and this is one strategy that you can use, is a Rubik's Cube. You've heard me, I've been the Rubik's Cube guy. One of the things I've used to follow up is sending a Rubik's Cube to an owner, and it'll say a small note that says, hey, let's figure this out. And then I'll follow up with them and ask, hey, did you solve that Rubik's Cube? And I remember one owner in particular said that my wife cannot figure out this Rubik's Cube. So you just think about that as an example that while she's back there trying to solve that Rubik's Cube, I still don't know if she's been able to solve it till today, but is that he's thinking of the guy who's looking to buy his property as that person's trying to figure that out. So that's what I mean. And then also is, if you're just using all these different avenues and still not able to get in touch with them, because you have to keep in mind through the follow-up is normally it takes between a 6 to 8 attempt just to get in contact with someone. Yes, just to get in contact. One, I see people give up too soon. One, they don't even make the call. And then second is they give up too soon, not realizing that it takes multiple attempts just to get in contact with someone. And there was a particular owner of an apartment that I had difficulties getting in touch with. So I ended up finding out who his daughter was, reached out to her on Facebook. By the way, you guys, I kept it strictly business. That's one thing I want to make as a disclaimer, and just simply ask, hey, I'm looking to get in touch with your father on XYZ apartment, and actually got his number directly. So that's what I mean, is just going above and beyond and using different channels versus direct mail, let's say calling or text, email. There's so many different avenues, but you just have to be committed enough. And when you're committed, you'll figure out a way to be creative. And I learned that from a mentor of mine. So those are a couple strategies that you can use, is be creative, always know that to follow up and then use a variety of channels, and just if one channel is not working, be willing to adapt. So let's go ahead and go into the next point, which these are the common motivations that you'll want to listen for when you're having these conversations, such as if the person says that they recently relocated and they're just not able to keep up with managing the property from afar. That's a motivation. The second is maybe they just inherited the property and they really want nothing to do with it. That's another key indicator. And I want to go back to the first point, is that this was a non-unit, that this was one that ended up acquiring last year, a smaller deal, that the owner, they lived in Indianapolis at one point, and then they ended up moving out to Florida, and they couldn't manage the property themselves from Florida. So what they did was they tried to get their son to manage the property, who was full-time in the police force. So he was not able to really devote the time to manage the property, and the pain points kept going back up to the father, who was, I believe he was out in Florida parasailing. But so he really didn't have the time, and at that point it started to become a headache and a pain point. So that was a problem to be solved, and then ended up purchasing that particular deal from at a really good discount price. So that's what I mean, is that just looking for certain problems. Let's say it's a single family house and they've just evicted the tenant, and they don't want to go in and make the renovations, have to get the contractors in there, have to now the releasing of the property is another sign of motivation. And then the last but not least is if they just ran out of cash. And this was a deal in the earlier days on the single family side, that I remember walking through the property, and that there was flooring everywhere. There was half paint of this room that was halfly painted, another room, and then you go, the bathroom wasn't finished, and then you go upstairs, some of the flooring was laid down, some of it wasn't, and he also had another property that was the same way, and we just got that one. He just ran out of cash. He didn't have enough money to actually complete the improvements to the property, and that's when he just simply said that, okay, well, I'm done. It's not what I thought it was going to be on HGTV. Go ahead, I would like for you to purchase these properties from me. So those are some of the common motivations that you'll want to look for. But these are some ones on the opposite side that are on the, okay, that is a good indicator that this person is not motivated in selling. When you speak to them, is everything's for sale for the right price. So if they say that, or go ahead and give me an offer that I can't refuse. That's another one that someone would say, or give me something above market. So I've heard it enough times, so that's why I want to say it in that tone. But yeah, those are some negatives that you'll hear, and in that case, it's just likely not a fit in a problem to be solved in your case. There's some cases where it still could be a good deal, but oftentimes I've seen is there has to be a problem to be solved, and the reason why that person is actually selling that property, and they want to move on to something else. So that is all on how to identify the motivations of a seller, and then in addition, how to exactly close them. But the main thing I want you to get away from this is that the key is in the follow-up. And then second is that there has to be a problem to be solved. And go ahead and comment below. Did I miss something of the common seller motivations? Are there other motivations that you yourself have heard? One thing I do want to end with is just sharing something quickly with everyone who is on here, is just going into is we all create our own stories, and we're the creator of our destinies. And why I want to go into this story is that just imagine you yourself, you're sitting in a movie theater of a movie that is of yourself. You're the one that's directing it. You're the one that's doing the music. You're the one that's doing the makeup, all these different things. And it's you that's actually in the story. So my question to you is, how do you want that story to be? How do you want that movie to be? Do you want the person that has been able to overcome the trials and tribulations to be able to have the freedom that they want to go do what they want, whoever they want, when they want, or someone that ends up living a modest life and not able to get to where they want to go. Is how do you see that motion picture of yourself that is directed by yourself and starring yourself? So that's what I really wanted to end with, you guys, and for you to ask yourself that question. And in addition to that, go ahead, subscribe button as well as the notification bell. That way you can be more informed moving forward. My Instagram is Sterling White Official. Follow me, and more than happy to answer any questions. But until then, keep being an awesome human being. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.